The mining station Kepler-7 floated in the darkness of space like a metal island. It was not a pretty place. The walls were gray and dirty. The air smelled like oil and sweat. Workers moved through the narrow hallways with tired faces and heavy steps. Jake Morrison wiped the grease from his hands as he walked down the maintenance tunnel. He was a tall man with brown hair and kind eyes. His work clothes were always dirty from fixing machines all day. The tunnel was dark and warm. Water dripped from the ceiling in a steady rhythm. Something moved in the shadows ahead. Jake stopped and listened. He heard a soft scratching sound, then a low whimper. He turned on his flashlight and pointed it toward the sound. Two glowing amber eyes stared back at him from the darkness. "What are you?" Jake whispered. The creature stepped into the light. It was about the size of a large dog, but it looked nothing like any animal Jake had ever seen. Its skin was gray and bumpy like old leather. It had 6 legs that bent in strange ways. Its head was too big for its body, and its mouth was full of small sharp teeth. Most people would have run away. The creature was ugly and frightening. But Jake saw something else in those glowing eyes. He saw sadness. He saw loneliness. He saw intelligence. "You're scared, aren't you?" Jake said softly. He knelt down and held out his hand. "I won't hurt you." The creature sniffed the air. It took a small step forward, then another. Its 6 legs moved in a careful pattern. It was limping. Jake could see that one of its back legs was hurt. "You're injured," Jake said. He moved very slowly so he would not frighten the creature. "Let me help you." The creature let Jake come closer. Its skin felt warm and rough under his fingers. The injured leg was swollen and painful. Jake could see old scars on the creature's body. Someone had hurt it before. "Who did this to you?" Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. 3 months ago, a group of Zephyrian traders had visited the station. They were tall aliens with blue skin and silver eyes. They brought many things to trade. One of them had this creature on a chain. They called it their pet. Jake remembered how they treated it. They kicked it when it moved too slowly. They laughed when it whimpered. They gave it scraps of rotten food. When they left the station, they left the creature behind like a piece of garbage. "They threw you away," Jake said. "But you're not garbage. You're alive. You matter." The creature made a soft sound. It almost sounded like it understood. Jake looked around the tunnel. It was a good hiding place. The other workers rarely came down here. The creature could stay safe. "I'll bring you food," Jake promised, "and water, and I'll fix that leg." Every day after that, Jake visited the creature. He brought it food from the cafeteria. He brought clean water and medical supplies. He made a soft bed from old blankets. Slowly, the creature began to trust him. Jake started calling it Buddy. He knew it was not the creature's real name, but it felt right. Buddy seemed to like the name. His ears would move when Jake said it. Buddy was much smarter than Jake had expected. He could solve simple puzzles. He could open doors and fix broken pipes. He seemed to understand when Jake talked to him. Jake began to think that Buddy understood everything. "You're not just smart," Jake told Buddy one evening. "You're special. I can feel it." Lisa Carter found Jake in the tunnel 2 weeks later. She was a small woman with red hair and sharp green eyes. She worked in the control room and knew everything that happened on the station. "Jake, what are you doing down here?" she asked. Then she saw Buddy. "Oh no, not you too?" "Too?" Jake asked. "Half the station knows about your pet," Lisa said. "They're calling it the Tunnel Monster. The supervisors are starting to ask questions." Jake stood up. "His name is Buddy, and he's not a monster." Lisa looked at Buddy. The creature was sitting quietly, watching them both. His amber eyes glowed in the flashlight beam. "Jake, I know you mean well, Lisa said, but that thing is dangerous. Look at those teeth, those claws. It could hurt someone. He won't hurt anyone, Jake said. He's gentle. He's just scared and alone. The Zephyrians left it here for a reason, Lisa said. They know their own species. If they didn't want it, maybe we shouldn't either. Jake felt anger rise in his chest. They left him here because they're cruel. They treat living things like toys. When they get bored, they throw them away. Lisa shook her head. You can't save every lost creature in the galaxy, Jake. Maybe not, Jake said, but I can save this one. The next morning, Captain Ron Hayes called a meeting. He was a big man with gray hair and a loud voice. All the workers gathered in the main hall. We have visitors coming, Captain Hayes announced. The Galactic Trade Council is sending an inspection team. They'll be here in 3 days. Jake felt his stomach drop. The Galactic Trade Council controlled trade between different worlds. They had strict rules about what could live on their stations. I want this place clean, Captain Hayes continued. No personal items in the work areas. No pets. No unauthorized life forms. Anyone caught breaking these rules will be fired. After the meeting, Jake ran to the tunnel. Buddy was waiting for him. The creature seemed to sense something was wrong. They're coming, Jake told Buddy. The people who make the rules. If they find you, they'll make you go away. Buddy made a soft, worried sound. He pressed his head against Jake's leg. But I won't let them take you, Jake promised. I'll find a way to keep you safe. Jake spent the next 2 days looking for a new hiding place. The station was small, and there were not many options. Finally, he found an abandoned storage room in the oldest part of the station. It was dirty and dark, but it was safe. You'll have to stay here for a while, Jake told Buddy as he moved the creature's blankets and food. Just until they leave. Buddy followed Jake to the new room. He looked around with his glowing eyes and made a small sound of acceptance. Inspection team arrived the next morning. There were 5 of them, led by Admiral Vextar, a tall Zephyrian with cold silver eyes. They wore official uniforms and carried data tablets. Jake watched them from across the cafeteria. Admiral Vextar was the same alien who had owned Buddy. Jake was sure of it. Everything must be perfect, Admiral Vextar said in a voice like breaking glass. The Trade Council expects complete compliance with all regulations. They spent the day checking every room, every system, every worker. Jake tried to stay calm, but his hands were shaking. What if they found Buddy? What would they do to him? Late that afternoon, Jake heard shouting from the old storage section. His heart stopped. He ran toward the sound, but Amy Stone, the security chief, grabbed his arm. Stay here, she said. There's been a discovery. Jake watched helplessly as the inspection team dragged Buddy out of the storage room. The creature was terrified. His 6 legs scrambled on the metal floor as they pulled him down the hallway. What is this abomination? Admiral Vextar demanded. How did this genetic waste get onto our station? I don't know, sir, Captain Hayes said. We'll dispose of it immediately. No, Jake shouted. He pushed past Amy Stone and ran toward them. You can't hurt him. He's done nothing wrong. Admiral Vextar looked at Jake with disgust. You did this. You harbored this creature. His name is Buddy, Jake said, and he's not waste. He's alive. He's intelligent. He has feelings. It is garbage, Admiral Vextar said. I should know. I threw it away myself. The words hit Jake like a physical blow. He had been right. This was the same alien who had abandoned Buddy. Then you're the monster, Jake said. Not him. Admiral. Vextar's eyes flashed with anger. Remove this creature from my sight. Destroy it. Over my dead body, Jake said, but there were too many of them. The guards grabbed Jake and held him back. Other guards started to drag Buddy toward the airlock. Buddy looked back at Jake with his glowing amber eyes. For a moment, Jake saw something strange in those eyes. Something that looked almost like understanding. Like purpose. Then Buddy opened his mouth and made a sound unlike anything Jake had ever heard. It was not a bark or a whimper. It was something else entirely. Something that would change everything. The sound that came from Buddy's mouth was like nothing Jake had ever heard. It was deep and musical, like a song made of sadness and hope. The sound filled the hallway and seemed to go on forever. Everyone stopped moving. Even Admiral Vex Tar looked surprised. What was that? One of the guards asked. It doesn't matter, Admiral Vex Tar said, but his voice sounded uncertain. Continue with the disposal. Jake could not let this happen. He broke free from the guards and threw himself between Buddy and the airlock. Stop, he shouted. You're making a mistake. The only mistake, Admiral Vex Tar said, was allowing this creature to live this long. But before anyone could move, the station's alarm system began to ring. Red lights flashed in the hallways. Captain Hayes's voice came over the speakers. All personnel to emergency stations. We have incoming ships. Unknown vessels approaching fast. The inspection team looked confused. Admiral Vex Tar spoke into his communicator. Trade Council ships. Report status. Sir, we're reading multiple contacts. They're not responding to our signals. How many ships? Admiral Vex Tar demanded. Dozens. Sir, maybe more. They're moving in attack formation. In the confusion, Jake grabbed Buddy and ran. The creature was heavy, but Jake managed to carry him to the abandoned storage room. He locked the door and set Buddy down gently. We need to hide, Jake whispered. Something bad is happening. Buddy looked at Jake with his glowing eyes. Then, he did something that made Jake's heart stop. He spoke, not with his mouth, but directly into Jake's mind. The words appeared in Jake's thoughts like they had always been there. Safe now, Buddy said in Jake's mind. Friends coming. Jake stared at the creature. You can talk? You can think? Always could, Buddy replied. Waited for right time. Who are you? Jake asked. But before Buddy could answer, the station shook. Something had hit the outer hall. The lights flickered and went out for a moment. What's happening? Jake asked. Krolix, Buddy said. Bad ones. They come to take, to hurt, to destroy. Jake knew about the Krolix. They were raiders who attacked mining stations and cargo ships. They were known for their cruelty. They took what they wanted and killed anyone who got in their way. We have to help defend the station, Jake said. No, Buddy said. You must trust. Help is coming. The station shook again. This time the lights stayed off. Emergency power kicked in, filling the room with a dim red glow. Jake could hear fighting. In the hallways, laser blasts, shouting, screaming. The Krolix are inside, Jake said. We have to do something. Buddy stood up on his 6 legs. His eyes glowed brighter than Jake had ever seen them. I do something, Buddy said. You stay safe. What can you do? Jake asked. Instead of answering, Buddy opened his mouth and made that strange sound again. But this time it was different. Stronger, more urgent. The sound passed through the walls of the station. It traveled through space itself. It reached across the galaxy to places Jake could not imagine. What are you doing? Jake asked. Calling family, Buddy said simply. The fighting got closer. Jake could hear boots running in the hallway outside. Someone was pounding on doors, looking for survivors. Human scum. A voice roared. Come out and die with honor. Jake recognized the voice. It was Captain Gex, the leader of the Krolix Raiders. He was famous for his cruelty. Stories said he had destroyed entire colonies just for fun. They're looking for us, Jake whispered. They will not find, Buddy said. I protect. Buddy did something that Jake did not understand. The creatures. Skin began to glow with a soft blue light. The light spread across the walls of the room. Suddenly, Jake could not hear the sounds from the hallway anymore. It was as if they were in a different place entirely. What did you do? Jake asked. Made us invisible, Buddy said. Old trick. Very old. Hours passed. Jake could not tell what was happening in the rest of the station. The blue light kept them hidden, but Jake worried about his friends. Was Lisa safe? What about Captain Hayes and Amy Stone? Are my friends alive? Jake asked. Buddy closed his eyes and was quiet for a long time. Some live, some hide, some fight. Can you help them? Soon, Buddy said. Family almost here. Jake did not understand what Buddy meant by family, but he trusted the creature. In the past few weeks, Buddy had never lied to him. Tell me who you really are, Jake said. Buddy looked at Jake with his glowing eyes. My people called keepers. Very old, very few left. What happened to them? Galaxy became cruel, Buddy said. Younger races forgot how to be kind. My people went away. Waited for better time. But you stayed? I was lost. Taken as baby. Sold. As pet. Forgot my own name for a long time. Jake felt a deep sadness in his chest. What's your real name? Ethmer, Buddy said. Means hope-bringer in old language. It's a beautiful name, Jake said. Your name beautiful too, Ethmer said. Jake means protector. You lived up to name. The station shook again, but this time it was different. The shaking was rhythmic, like a heartbeat. They're here, Ethmer said. His eyes grew very bright. Whose? Here? My family, my people, the last keepers. Jake felt the station shake again. But now he could hear something else. A sound like singing. Like 1,000 voices joined together in harmony. What are they doing? Jake asked. Clearing out the bad ones, Ethmer said simply. The singing grew louder. Jake could feel it in his bones. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. It was the sound of justice. The blue light around their room began to fade. Ethmer stood up and walked to the door. Safe now, he said. Time to go. Jake followed Ethmer out of the room. The hallways were empty and quiet. The emergency lights were still on, but the station felt different. Calmer, peaceful. They walked toward the main hall. Other survivors were coming out of their hiding places. Jake saw Lisa and Amy Stone. They were hurt but alive. Jake, Lisa called. Are you okay? I'm fine, Jake said. This is Ethmer. He saved us. Lisa looked at the creature with new eyes. He spoke to me, she said quietly. In my mind, he told me where to hide. Amy Stone nodded. He saved my life. The Krolix were about to find me, but something made them turn away. More survivors appeared. Peter Kim, the station doctor. Danny Martinez, a young mechanic. Sarah White, who worked in the cafeteria. All of them had the same story. The creature had somehow helped them survive. They reached the main hall and stopped. The room was full of beings that Jake had never seen before. They were tall and graceful, with skin that shifted colors like the aurora. Their eyes were large and kind. They moved without making any sound. The keepers, Jake whispered. One of the beings approached them. It was taller than the others, with skin that glowed like starlight. When it spoke, its voice was like music. I am Velther, speaker for the keepers, it said. We have come for our lost child. Velther looked at Ethmer with great love. Young one, we felt your call across the void. We are sorry it took so long to find you. I waited, Ethmer said. I learned. I found good people. Velther turned to Jake. You are the one who showed kindness to our child. Anyone would have done the same, Jake said. No, Velther said sadly. Most would not. That is why we left. That is why we hid. The galaxy had become a cruel place. What about the Krolix? Amy Stone asked. What happened to them? They are gone, Velther said. They will not return. They have been convinced ... to change their ways. Jake looked around the room. More keepers were arriving. They carried strange devices that hummed with power. They were setting up equipment that Jake did not recognize. What are you doing? Jake asked. Preparing, Velther said. For too long, we have watched from the shadows. We have seen cruelty and turned away. But your kindness to our child has shown us something important. What? That there is still hope. That some beings can still choose compassion over cruelty. That perhaps it is time for the keepers to return. Ethmer walked over to Jake and pressed his head against Jake's leg. You changed everything, he said in Jake's mind. You showed me that not all people are cruel. You showed my people that some are worth saving. I just did what was right, Jake said. Exactly, Velther said. And that is why everything will change. Outside the station, Jake could see the keeper ships. They were unlike anything he had ever seen. They were not made of metal, but of something that looked like living crystal. They pulsed with inner light and moved like living things. Your people are beautiful, Jake said. We are old, Velther said. We have seen much. We have learned much. And now, perhaps, it is time to teach. Admiral Vexstar and his inspection team were brought into the main hall. They were not hurt, but they looked terrified. They had never seen keepers before. Most people in the galaxy thought they were just legends. What do you want with us? Admiral. Vexstar demanded, trying to sound brave. Velther looked at him with eyes that seemed to see everything. You abandoned our child. You called him waste. You ordered his death. I didn't know, Admiral Vexstar stammered. If I had known what? He was ... You would have treated him differently. Velther asked. Why? Because he was valuable? Because he was powerful? What about when you thought he was weak and ugly? Did he not deserve kindness then? Admiral Vexstar had no answer. This human, Velther said, pointing to Jake, showed kindness to our child when he thought the child was worthless. He expected no reward. He asked for nothing in return. He simply saw a living being in need and helped. Velther turned to address all the survivors. The galaxy is about to see. The next morning, Jake woke up in his small quarters, feeling like he had dreamed everything. But when he looked out his window, he saw the keeper ships floating around the station like glowing jewels. It was all real. He found Ethmer in the main hall, surrounded by other keepers. They were touching him gently with their long fingers, as if they were reading his memories. How is he? Jake asked Velther. He is well, the keeper leader said. But he has been hurt in ways that will take time to heal. Not just his body, but his spirit. Jake watched as the keepers worked on Ethmer. Their hands glowed with soft light. Where they touched him, his scars began to fade. His injured leg grew stronger. You can heal him? Jake asked. We can heal his body, Velther said. But the wounds to his heart, those only kindness can heal. And you have already begun that work. Lisa Carter approached them. She looked nervous but determined. I owe you an apology, she said to Ethmer. I called you dangerous. I was wrong. Ethmer looked at her with his glowing eyes. You were protecting friend, he said in her mind. Is good thing? I understand fear. Can all of you speak like this? Lisa asked. In our minds? It is our gift, Velther said. We can share thoughts and feelings across great distances. It is how we stayed connected even when we were scattered across the galaxy. Amy Stone joined them. I have questions, she sighed. About what happened yesterday. About the Krolix. What did you do to them? Velthor's expression became serious. We did what was necessary. The Kroleks were beyond redemption. They had chosen cruelty as their way of life. We ... removed them from the equation. You killed them? Amy asked. We transported them to a place where they can do no harm, Velthor said. A place where they can think about their actions. Whether they choose to change or not is up to them. Jake felt a chill. The keepers seemed kind, but they were also incredibly powerful. He was glad they were on his side. What happens now? Jake asked. Now, Velthor said, we must decide what to do about the galaxy. We have been watching for a long time. We have seen much that troubles us. More keepers entered the hall. They carried data tablets made of the same crystal-like material as their ships. They began showing images in the air. Above the tablets, Jake saw scenes from across the galaxy. On one world, a species was hunting another species to extinction. FOR sport. On another, corporations were destroying entire ecosystems for profit. On a third, governments were using slave labor to build monuments to their own power. This is what we see everywhere, Velthor said sadly. The younger races have forgotten how to care for each other. They have forgotten that all life is precious. But not all of them, Ethmer said. He looked at Jake. Some still remember kindness. Admiral Vextar was brought forward by 2 keeper guards. His silver skin had turned pale, and his hands were shaking. What will you do to me? He asked. That depends, Velthor said. Tell us about the creature you abandoned. Tell us how you treated him. Admiral Vextar looked at the floor. It was just a pet. A curiosity. We bought it from traders in the Outer Rim. You bought him? Velthor's voice was cold. Like a thing? We didn't know he was intelligent, Admiral Vextar said quickly. He never showed any signs of higher thought. Because you never looked, Ethmer said. You saw ugly outside and stopped seeing inside. We gave him food, Admiral Vextar said, and shelter. Rotten food, Jake said, feeling angry. And you beat him when he didn't obey fast enough. He was just an animal, Admiral Vextar protested. No, Velthor said. He was a child, a baby taken from his family, sold into slavery, beaten and starved and treated like garbage. The other keepers in the room began to make a low humming sound. It was not pleasant. It was the sound of anger barely held in check. We are very old, Velthor said. We have seen civilizations rise and fall. We have watched species learn and grow. But we have never seen such casual cruelty to the innocent. Please, Admiral Vextar said. I'm sorry. If I had known ... You are sorry that you were caught, Velthor said. You are sorry that there are consequences. But you are not sorry for what you did. Jake stepped forward. What will you do to him? What do you think we should do? Velthor asked. Jake looked at Admiral Vextar. The alien was terrified. Jake felt anger toward him, but also something else. Pity. I think, Jake said slowly, that he should understand what he did. Really understand. Velthor nodded. Wisdom from an unlikely source. Very well. The keeper leader approached Admiral Vextar. He placed his hand on the alien's forehead. Admiral Vextar's eyes went wide. What are you doing? He gasped. Showing you, Velthor said. Feel what Ethmer felt. See what you made him see. Admiral Vextar began to shake. Then he began to cry. Jake had never seen a Zephyrian cry before. Their tears were silver and fell like drops of mercury. Oh no, Admiral Vextar whispered. Oh no, what have I done? You begin to understand, Velthor said. This is what we call true justice. Not punishment, but understanding. Admiral Vextar fell to his knees. I'm sorry, he said to Ethmer. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't see. Ethmer walked over to him. The creature that had been called ugly and worthless looked down at the powerful alien who had tormented him. "You see now," Ethmer said gently, "is first step. Next step is to do better." "How?" Admiral Vextar asked. "How can I make this right?" "You can't," Velther said. "But you can choose to be different from now on. You can choose to see the value in all life, not just the life that looks like yours." Captain Hayes entered the hall. He looked overwhelmed by everything he had seen. "The Galactic Trade Council is demanding answers," he said. "They want to know what happened to the Krolix fleet. They want to know who you are." "Let them come," Velther said. "It is time for the galaxy to remember the Keepers." "They'll bring warships," Captain Hayes warned. "Lots of them." "Let them," Velther repeated. "We are not afraid of warships." Jake looked around the room at all the Keepers. They seemed so peaceful, so gentle. But he was beginning to understand that they were also incredibly powerful. "How powerful are you?" he asked Velther. "We shaped the first worlds," Velther said. "We guided the first civilizations. We taught the first languages. We are as old as the galaxy itself. And you've been hiding all this time?" "We withdrew," Velther said. "We grew tired of watching our children turn into monsters. We hoped that if we left, the younger races would learn to be better on their own. But they didn't." Jake said, double quotes, "No, they got worse. They developed new weapons, new ways to be cruel, new ways to destroy what we had built. So why come back now?" Amy Stone asked. Velther looked at Jake. "Because of one human who showed kindness to a creature he thought was worthless. Because of one person who proved that compassion still exists in the galaxy." Jake felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. "I just did what anyone should do." "But most don't," Velther said. "That is the tragedy. That is why we must return." An alarm began to sound. Captain Hayes spoke into his communicator. "Report," he said. "Captain, we have multiple ships approaching. Big ones. It's the Galactic Trade Council fleet." "How many?" Captain Hayes asked. 50 ships, sir. Maybe more. They're moving into attack formation." Jake felt his heart sink. "They're going to attack?" "They're going to try," Velther said calmly. "They see us as a threat to their power." "Are you?" "Oh, yes," Velther said with a smile. "We are the greatest threat they have ever faced. We threaten their right to be cruel. We threaten their right to destroy. We threaten their right to treat life as worthless." The Keepers in the room began to move. They walked with purpose toward their ships. Jake noticed that they seemed to be communicating without words, coordinating their actions through their mental link. "What are you going to do?" Jake asked. "We are going to show them who we are," Velther said. "We are going to remind the galaxy that there are still those who protect the innocent. Will you hurt them?" "Only if they force us to," Velther said. "We do not seek war. We seek justice." Ethmer approached Jake. "You should come with us," he said. "On my ship. We'll be safe there." "I can't abandon the station," Jake said. "Station will be safe," Ethmer promised. "But you important now. You changed everything. Galaxy will want to meet you." "Me? I'm nobody special." "You are human who showed kindness," Velther said. "That makes you the most important person in the galaxy." Jake looked at his friends. Lisa, Amy, Captain Hayes, all the other survivors. They were looking at him with new eyes. "Go," Lisa said. "This is bigger than all of us now." "Represent us well," Amy said. "Show them that humans can be good." Jake took a deep breath. "All right, but I want to come back." "You will," Velther promised. "But first, you must see what we are going to show the galaxy." They walked to the docking bay where the Keeper ships waited. Jake had never seen anything like them. They were beautiful and alive and powerful, all at once. "Welcome aboard the Star Whisper," Ethmer said as they entered his ship. "Is my home now." The inside of the ship was as beautiful as the outside. The walls glowed with soft light. The floors felt warm under Jake's feet. Everything curved and flowed like it had grown instead of being built. "It's incredible," Jake said. "Is." "Old," Ethmer said. "Very old, but still strong." They moved to what Jake guessed was the bridge. There were no chairs, just platforms that rose from the floor. The walls showed images of space around them. "Here they come," Velther said. News of the Keeper's return spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Within hours, every major government, corporation, and military force knew what had happened at Kepler 7. The Galactic Trade Council's mighty fleet had been defeated. Without a single shot being fired back, Jake found himself in the middle of something he could never have imagined. He was no longer just a maintenance worker on a mining station. He was now the first human ambassador to the Keepers, whether he wanted to be or not. "I don't know how to be an ambassador," Jake told Velther as they traveled toward the Keeper homeworld. "You already are one," Velther said. "Every act of kindness is a form of diplomacy. Every moment of compassion builds bridges between hearts." The Keeper ship Star Whisper moved through space in ways that human ships never could. Instead of crude engines pushing against the void, it seemed to flow with the natural currents of the universe. Jake could feel the ship's contentment as it carried them home. "How long have your people been hiding?" Jake asked. 3,000 years, Velther said. "We watched as the younger races grew strong but not wise. We hoped they would learn to be better without our guidance. But they didn't. No, they built bigger weapons. They found new ways to hurt each other. They turned life into a commodity to be bought and sold." Jake thought about Admiral Vextar and how he had treated Ethmer. Some of them changed, though. The Admiral seemed truly sorry. "Yes, Velther." "Agreed. That gives us hope. If even one who was so cruel can learn to see differently, perhaps others can too." They arrived at the Keeper homeworld after 2 days of travel. Jake had expected to see a planet covered in cities and technology. Instead, he saw something that took his breath away. The world was alive. Not just with plants and animals, but the planet itself seemed to pulse with life. The cities were grown rather than built, rising from the ground like massive trees. Gardens covered every surface. Water flowed in patterns that looked like art. "It's beautiful," Jake whispered. "This is what the galaxy could become," Velther said, "if the younger races learned to work with life instead of against it." They landed at a spaceport that looked like a flower made of crystal and light. Thousands of Keepers were waiting for them. They had come to see the human who had saved one of their children. Jake felt nervous as he walked down the ramp from the ship. All those glowing eyes watching him. All those ancient beings who had seen the birth of civilizations. But then Ethmer pressed against his leg, and Jake remembered why he was here. He had not done anything special. He had just been kind. To a friend, the crowd of Keepers began to sing. It was the most beautiful sound Jake had ever heard. Harmonies that seemed to come from the very stars themselves. Music that spoke of joy and hope and welcome. "They sing for you," Velther said, "for the kindness you showed, for the change you have brought." Jake felt tears in his eyes. "I don't deserve this." "You deserve everything," Ethmer said in his mind. "You saved me. You saved all of us." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, panic was setting in among the powers that controlled interstellar trade and politics. The Galactic Trade Council called emergency meetings. The major corporations started moving their fleets. Everyone wanted to know what the Keepers planned to do. On the Trade Council's capital world, Supreme Chancellor Thexmo paced back and forth in his office. He was a large alien with thick gray skin and small, calculating eyes. How did this happen? He demanded of his advisors. How did we not know the keepers still existed? We thought they were myths, sir, said his chief of staff, a nervous creature with too many arms. Stories to frighten children. Well, they're not myths, Chancellor Thexmal snapped. They're real, and they just made our entire fleet look like toys. What do we do? Asked another advisor. We find out what they want, the Chancellor said, and we give it to them, whatever it costs. But the keepers were not interested in negotiating with the Trade Council. Instead, they began sending messages to every world in the galaxy, not to governments or corporations, but to individual people. The messages were simple. They asked questions that most people had never been asked before. Do you think all life has value? Should the strong protect the weak? Is kindness more important than profit? Would you rather live in a galaxy built on fear or one built on love? The question spread from world to world, person to person. People began to talk about things they had never discussed before. What kind of galaxy did they want to live in? What kind of future did they want to build? Back on the Keeper homeworld, Jake was learning about his new role. He spent his days meeting with Keeper elders, learning about their history and their hopes for the future. We do not want to rule the galaxy, explained Kareth, an ancient Keeper whose skin shifted through all the colors of the rainbow. We want to guide it, to help the younger races remember what they have forgotten. What if they don't want guidance? Jake asked. Then they will continue as they have, Kareth said sadly. And the galaxy will grow darker until there is nothing left but cruelty and greed. But you won't force them? Force creates resentment, Kareth said. True change must come from within. It must be chosen freely. Jake was beginning to understand the enormity of what was happening. The Keepers were offering the galaxy a choice. Continue down the path of selfishness and violence, or learn to build something better. But not everyone was interested in making that choice. 3 weeks after the Keepers revealed themselves, a coalition of military forces from several worlds launched an attack on a Keeper outpost. The attack was led by General Voss, a human military leader who believed that the Keepers were a threat to human independence. He commanded a fleet of Earth's most advanced warships. Humanity will not bow to alien overlords, General Voss declared in a broadcast before the attack. We have fought too hard for our freedom to give it up now. Jake watched the attack from the Keeper Council chambers. The human ships opened fire on the Keeper outpost, which was nothing more than a peaceful research station. Stop them, Jake said to Velther. Don't let them do this. We cannot stop them without using force, Velther said. And if we use force, we become what they fear we are. But innocent people will die. Yes, Velther said sadly. Some will choose violence even when offered peace. Jake watched in horror as the human ships destroyed the research station. Keepers died in the attack, ancient beings who had survived for millennia, killed by Jake's own species. I'm sorry, Jake said. I'm so sorry they did this. You are not responsible for the choices of others, Velther said. You can only be responsible for your own choices. But the attack had consequences. The Keepers began to withdraw from several star systems. They stopped answering questions from human governments. The bridge that Jake had helped build began to crack. They're losing faith in us, Jake said to Ethmer as they walked through the gardens of the Keeper capital. Some are, Ethmer agreed, but not all. Many still believe that humans can learn, that humans can change. How can I fix this? You cannot fix what others have broken, Ethmer said, but you can show them a better way. Jake made a decision. That surprised everyone, including himself. He asked to speak directly to the galaxy, not to governments or corporations, but to ordinary people everywhere. The Keepers agreed to broadcast his message to every inhabited world. Jake sat in a simple room with Ethmer beside him and spoke from his heart. "My name is Jake Morrison." He began. "I'm a maintenance worker from a mining station. 3 months ago, I found a creature hiding in the tunnels where I work. He was hurt and scared and alone. Most people called him ugly. Some called him dangerous. The people who owned him threw him away like garbage." Jake paused and looked at Ethmer. "But I saw something different. I saw intelligence. I saw kindness. I saw a friend." He turned back to the camera. "That creature's name is Ethmer. He is a keeper. His people are the oldest and wisest in the galaxy. They could have used their power to take revenge on those who hurt their child. Instead, they chose to forgive. They chose to offer us a chance to be better." Jake's voice grew stronger. "Some humans have chosen to attack them. Some have chosen fear over hope. But that's not who we have to be. We can choose kindness. We can choose to protect those who are different from us. We can choose to build a galaxy where all life has value." He stood up, and Ethmer stood with him. "I'm not a politician or a general or a corporate leader. I'm just a man who chose to be kind to a creature that needed help. And that choice changed everything." Jake looked directly into the camera. "What will you choose?" The broadcast ended, but its effects were just beginning. Across the galaxy, people began to respond. Some with anger, some with fear, but many with hope. On Earth, a group of scientists announced that they were creating a foundation to protect endangered alien species. On the mining world of Rigel 4, workers went on strike until their company agreed to stop using slave labor. On the trade hub of New Geneva, citizens demanded that their government ban the sale of sentient beings. Not everyone was pleased with these changes. General Voss called for Jake to be arrested as a traitor. Several corporations put bounties on keeper heads. The Zephyrian Empire declared war on anyone who harbored keepers. But for every voice raised in anger, 2 more were raised in support. Children across the galaxy began to learn about the keepers. 6 months had passed since the keepers revealed themselves to the galaxy. Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the newly built Harmony Station, watching ships from dozens of worlds dock at the massive structure. What had started as a simple mining station had become the most important diplomatic hub in the galaxy. The transformation was remarkable. Where once there had been only gray metal corridors, now there were gardens and art galleries. Where there had been the smell of oil and sweat, now there was the scent of flowers and fresh air. The keepers had helped rebuild Kepler 7 into something beautiful. "Hard to believe it's the same place," said Lisa Carter as she joined Jake at the viewing window. She wore the uniform of the new Interspecies Protection Service, an organization that had formed to help abandoned and mistreated alien beings. "Sometimes I miss the old tunnels," Jake said with a smile. "Life was simpler then." "Simpler, maybe," Lisa said. "But not better." She was right. In the months since the keepers returned, the galaxy had begun to change in ways no one could have imagined. The Galactic Trade Council had been forced to pass new laws protecting sentient beings from being bought and sold. Several major corporations had been shut down for using slave labor. Dozens of worlds had formed the Alliance of Free Species, dedicated to peaceful cooperation instead of exploitation. "Jake," a familiar voice said in his mind. "Council meeting starting soon." Jake turned to see Ethmer approaching. His friend looked healthier than ever. The scars from his time as a prisoner had completely healed, and his gray skin now had a subtle shimmer that showed his true keeper heritage. "How are the new arrivals?" Jake asked. "Scared but hopeful," Ethmer replied. 3 more ships today. Refugees from the vegan corporate states. They heard about Sanctuary here. The Sanctuary was Jake's idea, though it had grown far beyond what he had originally imagined. It started as a simple shelter for abandoned alien pets and abused workers. Now it was a massive complex that housed thousands of beings from across the galaxy. They walked together toward the council chambers. The hallways were busy with activity. Human diplomats talked with keeper scientists. Former corporate slaves worked alongside their former masters, building something new together. Children from a dozen different species played in the common areas. "Any word from Admiral Vexstar?" Jake asked. "He arrives tomorrow," Ethmer said, bringing delegation from reformed Zephyrian Republic. Admiral Vexstar had become an unlikely ally in the months since his encounter with the Keepers. The experience of feeling Ethmer's pain had changed him completely. He had returned to his own people and convinced them to abandon their cruel practices. Now he was one of the strongest voices for reform in the galaxy. And General Voss? Jake asked with less enthusiasm. "Still calling for your arrest," Ethmer said sadly. "Some humans not ready for change." General Voss had formed what he called the Human Independence Movement. They believed that humanity should reject the Keepers entirely and maintain their right to exploit the galaxy as they saw fit. Several Earth colonies had joined his movement, and there had been scattered attacks on Keeper facilities. "We can't force them to change," Jake said, remembering Velthur's words. "Change has to come from within." They entered the council chambers, where representatives from over 50 species were gathered. At the center of the room sat the Council of Keepers, with Velthur as their speaker. The chamber itself was a work of art, a perfect sphere with walls that showed images of space, making everyone feel like they were floating among the stars. "Welcome, friends," Velthur said as Jake and Ethmer took their seats. "Today we discussed the proposal for the Galactic Preservation Act." The act was ambitious, a galaxy-wide law that would protect endangered species, ban the slave trade, and require all corporations to prove that their operations did not harm sentient life. It had support from most worlds, but implementation would be difficult. Amy Stone, who now served as head of Harmony Station Security, stood to give her report. "We've received threats from 17 different groups this week. A corporate coalition is still trying to sabotage our supply lines. And the Terran Independence Fleet is massing near the Proxima system. What do they want?" Asked Dr. Sarah Kim, a human scientist who had joined the Keeper research programs. "Same as always," Amy said. "They want us to stop interfering with their right to do business as usual." Jake felt the familiar weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Every decision the Council made affected billions of lives. Every law they passed created enemies as well as allies. "There's something else," Amy continued. "We've intercepted communications suggesting that several groups are planning a coordinated attack. They want to destroy Harmony Station and kill the Keeper leadership." A murmur of concern went through the chamber. Jake felt Ethmer's mental touch, offering comfort and strength. "When?" Velthur asked calmly. "Soon," Amy said. "Maybe within days." "Do we evacuate?" Asked Captain Ron Hayes, who had been promoted to oversee all civilian operations at the station. "No," Jake said, surprising himself with the firmness in his voice. "If we run, we send the message that violence works, that fear wins. But if we stay, people could die," Dr. Kim pointed out. "People are already dying," Jake said. "On worlds where slavery is still legal, in corporate work camps, in species hunting preserves. If we don't stand up to this, more will die." Velthur nodded slowly. "A human speaks wisdom. We cannot build a better galaxy by running from those who prefer the old ways." "So what do we do?" Lisa asked. "We prepare," Velthur said. "But we also offer one final chance for peace." Over the next 3 days, Harmony Station became a fortress. Ships from the Alliance of Free Species arrived to help defend it. Keeper technology created shields that could stop anything the attackers might bring. But Jake insisted that they also broadcast an open invitation for peace talks. Anyone who wants to discuss their concerns, Jake said in the broadcast, is welcome here. We want to listen. We want to understand. We want to find a solution that works for everyone. Most of the hostile groups ignored the invitation, but a few representatives did come. They were suspicious and angry, but they came. Jake met with them personally. There was Colonel Martinez from the Human Independence Movement, Administrator Vertag from the Corporate Coalition, even Captain Gex, who had somehow survived the Krolix encounter and now led a group of former raiders. You're destroying our way of life, Colonel Martinez said bluntly. Humans fought for centuries to build our civilization. Now you want to give it all away to aliens. I want to build something better, Jake said. For humans and for everyone else. Better for who? Administrator Vortag demanded. My corporation employs millions of beings. If we follow your rules, we'll have to shut down half our operations. If your operations depend on slave labor, Jake said, maybe they should shut down. Easy words from someone who's never had to meet a payroll, Vortag said. Captain Gex had been silent during the discussion. Finally, he spoke. I killed thousands of beings, he said. Destroyed entire colonies. You know what the Keepers did to me? Jake waited. They showed me what I was doing, Gex continued. They made me feel what my victims felt. It almost drove me insane, but it also changed me. I can never go back to being what I was. He looked at the other representatives. Some of you are afraid of losing your power. Some are afraid of losing your profits. But what you should really be afraid of is losing your souls. The talks continued for 2 days. Some progress was made. Colonel Martinez agreed to call off his fleet in exchange for guarantees that Earth would maintain its independence. Administrator Vertag agreed to begin transitioning his operations to fair labor practices, but not everyone was satisfied with talk. On the 3rd day, sensors detected a massive fleet approaching Harmony Station. Ships from over a dozen hostile groups, all converging on the same target. They're not responding to our signals, Amy reported. Energy readings suggest they're preparing to attack. Jake stood in the command center, watching the approaching ships on the main screen. There were hundreds of them. Even with the station's defenses and the Allied fleet, the battle would be devastating. We could run, Velthar said quietly. Take the station to hyperspace. Find another location. No, Jake said. This is where we make our stand. This is where we prove that there's a better way. Even if it means war? Jake looked at his friend Ethmer, who had been quietly observing. What do you think? I think, Ethmer said, that some fights are worth having. But maybe this fight. Not what it seems. What do you mean? Instead of answering, Ethmer walked to the communications console. He began to broadcast on all frequencies, but not with words. He used the same song-like call that he had made when the Krolix attacked. Sound filled space around Harmony Station. It was beautiful and sad and hopeful all at once. It was the sound of a child calling for help, the sound of innocents asking for protection. One by one, ships in the attacking fleet began to slow down, their weapons powered down. Some even broke formation and turned away. What's happening? Amy asked. They're remembering, Velthar said with wonder in his voice. Ethmer's call is reminding them of their own children, their own innocent selves, their own hopes for something better. Not. All the ships stopped. About a third of the fleet continued their approach.